Hello, everyone, and welcome. I want to make sure everyone is joining us today. If I could have my colleague, um, there, Jane Iguez, should be joining with us. Thank you. I believe we've had just a little bit of technical difficulty. Jane and I got kicked out, but it's wonderful to be on with you. And so welcome to Making Measurable Skill Gains that point to student success. My name is Robert Breitbard, Director of Educational Partnerships with Burlington English, and it gives me great pleasure to be with some wonderful colleagues today. And thank you for all that you do. All of our participants do hope this webinar is meeting you and you're safe and you're healthy. And to introduce herself, I'll turn it over to my wonderful colleague through Burlington and then CASAS, Jane Iguez. And we'll unmute.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good morning to those on the West Coast and afternoon to everybody else. We're excited to be with you today. And shall we get going, Robert?
Definitely. And everyone, I'm sure you're black belts by now, but if you'd hover your mouse around and find that Zoom toolbar, and in the chat, if you'd place in your name, what program you're coming in from, and what state you're coming in from. And while you open up that chat, if you change that setting to all panelists and all attendees, so that we can all join in knowing who's in the room and having this as much vibrant interaction as possible. While Jane and I will be the only ones with live webcams and web mics, please know both Jane and myself have wonderful Burlington and CASAS colleagues who can really help you out. So please don't hesitate. We're going to talk about a lot of exciting information, and a lot of it, I promise you, we're only going to scratch the surface. Let me just full warning, we're only going to scratch the surface. And I know you're going to be excited about the potential for, really taking student achievement to the next level and rightfully having your program shine and seeing how those two things can come together so easily. So please utilize that question and answer, utilize that chat, even if we don't have time to get to it during the amount of content that we have to deliver today. I promise you that we'll review the chats, review the Q&As, get all the information back to you. And then once again, thank you to Janice and Linda on Jane's team, and then my wonderful colleagues, Brandy and Amelia on my team, who are going to be helping out today. And also, don't hesitate. You see our website, or rather our email addresses right on the screen. Please, there would be nothing finer than for Jane and I to be burning the midnight oil, reviewing all of the chats and Q&As and getting back to you. So please don't hesitate. We're genuinely here to help. So to tell you a little bit about, just very quickly, who Jane Iguez is and Robert Breitbard, I'm going to turn it over for this following screen to start off with Jane. Jane?
Yes, hi. My name is Jane, and I work with CASAS. And for those of you who are not familiar with CASAS, we have been working for 40 years, and our sole mission has been to work with adult education programs, helping them really improve their delivery so that all the adult learners in their programs can meet their goals. So again, CASAS is pleased to be partnering with Burlington, and we look forward to sharing you a little bit about CASAS if you're new to our system.
Yes, and I love that I have coming up on 500 attendees who get to celebrate with me my 30th year in adult education. So it was 30 years ago when I got a phone call, Rob, you're doing K through 12 ESL, why not teach those moms and dads of those kiddos that you've got during the day? So this is my 30th year in adult education, starting off in Southwest Florida, and I am so pleased to spend some special time with you all today. And Thanksgiving and November in general has always been a wonderful, thankful time. If you'd like to put in the chat somebody you're especially thankful for, love to see who that might be. I know for me, I'd like to, give a big shout out to the people who support myself and support Jane. So for Jane, that would definitely be the CASAS board and our delightful friend who's headed up CASAS for what seems like forever, Pat Rickard. Big shout out to our friends, Pat Rickard. And this is my 22nd year. And I remember it was around Thanksgiving. So about 22 years ago, I sat in a Southwest Florida training. It was the first time that I found out anything about CASAS. So a big shout out to my dear friend, Linda Taylor, 22 years now. Thank you so much. CASAS is filled with such wonderful people. And a big shout out, I have to admit, to the people that support me and my dozens and dozens and dozens of colleagues. So a big shout out to my friend, Zevi Aber, and to the folks who really make all the magic happen, and that would be Marcel and Eric Cohen. Thank you for all you do. If Thanksgiving here and the month of November is a time of thanks, thank you. And thank you for all of your learners who, with everything that you have going on at home, and yet here you are, you're staying so focused on measurable skill gains that point to student success. And as Jane mentioned about CASAS, Burlington English, well, this is all we do. This is all we do. This entire adult ed niche. And if if you do something well, long enough, you do it well, it brings great joy. So we really do. And like I say, I've got dozens and dozens of colleagues that you'll see on our website who can help you. So if by chance we don't get to one of your questions or, something that you put in the chat, please know we'll definitely follow up with one of my wonderful colleagues. Same for our friends at CASAS. Okay. Well, if teaching, if a great lesson plan should start with a anticipatory set, and again, I should say, here's all the people I wish I could fit on the screen right now, but they're telling me I'm limited to just a few. So once again, for all of the great people who populate, the organization of CASAS, there's just an seemingly equal amount of people here to really take your learning to the next level. So during these most challenging times, reach out to CASAS at casas.org. And then please reach out at info@burlingtonenglish.com. All these wonderful people would love to help you. Again, during these challenging times, it would give us great delight to help your learners achieve their goals and obviously make your programs look really, really good. Okay. So it should set the stage of why are we here today? Some of you may have just heard gains and maybe you're taking your first steps in adult education, while many other of you might, like me, have decades in this. So let's get a little, activate some prior knowledge. Why measurable skill gains? And there's really a reason that term finds itself in adult education. And we're going to talk about that for just a moment. So in the long and the short, a measurable skill gain is a true, is a definitive data indicator. Now, I'm going to say here program quality, but really, if your students are achieving their goals, then obviously those data indicators are going to look really, really good too. But measurable skill gains are critical. They are critical. And we'll talk about exactly why. And that term, measurable skill gains, well, that really emanates from Washington, D.C., and it comes from Congress. And measurable skill gains are what tell Congress, along with all of our other stakeholders, that we are having quality programs. So for the federal contribution to funding to adult ed, that is why we are even talking about measurable skill gains. And for those of you who are relatively new, you might not have known that 5 years ago, something amazing happened towards the end of the Obama administration. Really, when a lot legislation was not getting done, an amazing thing happened. Bipartisan, independents, Republicans, and Democrats got together and agreed upon revising how we helped oftentimes those most in need in our community. And so they came up with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So, of course, for the federal government to be able to spend money, to be able to distribute money to the states, there's got to be legislation. And so, while your program may draw from a number of different sources, particularly state funding and some philanthropy, possibly overwhelmingly nationwide, your programs are drawing from this Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act funding. Okay. And what happens here is that these funds start in Washington, D.C., and then based on a number of factors, including census, are distributed out as part of a grant competition. So your local program has to participate in a grant, fill out a grant application to get these funds. Now, you should know also that WIOA is a really big tent. And so it also supports your local workforce center, your American Job Center. So just know that definitely, if you're making any notes right now, this is a great launching off time for you to have a discussion with your administrators, or if you're an administrator but relatively new, to have with your state office. Really find out, some of those the nitty gritty about WIOA. Okay. And by the way, in the chat, feel free, if you'd also like some follow-up webinars that take a little bit deeper dive at this to help you really get your mental arms around this, please just let us know in the chat, and we'd love to put that together for you. So once again, this WIOA allows the federal government, typically the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Education, to send out to your state capitals, and then different divisions in your state capitals, and then particularly for adult education, we can access these monies through a grant competition. And once again, the way that the federal government interprets whether or not those monies are being used effectively is through these data indicators, the measurable skill gains. Now, to tell you about what WIOA measurable skill gains are involved in our side of the house, the adult education. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jane to give you some more information about that.
Okay. Well, under this big tent of WIOA, there are a number of different outcomes that are reported for data collection. And today we're just going to focus on measurable skill gains. And there are 5 types of measurable skill gains across all the different departments and titles. So go ahead and let's look at them. One is educational functioning levels gains. So we'll be looking at that in depth today. Then there's also how many students have completed a high school diploma or equivalent. We'll touch on that closer to the end of our presentation today. And then there are 3 other types of measurable skill gains that can also be reported out, but today we'll be covering that. Now, what are the educational functioning levels? Well, today there are several different educational functional level ways to report, but today we're just going to be looking at the pre and post-test gains. How many students have moved a level from pre-test to post-test? So if we could look at the next slide, please. So under the measurable skill gains for English as a second language programs, there are 6 levels that the federal government is looking to see. Starting at the bottom, level 1 is beginning ESL literacy, and then it moves up the scale to NRS level 6, which is an advanced ESL level. So the data that's being reported is how many students are at a certain level when they enter, and then how many have moved a level. So how many students have come into the program at, for example, a level 3, and then how many moved to a level 4, and that's what's reported to the feds. And on the right hand of this chart, you can see there's some CASAS scale scores. So it's from CASAS testing that we are able to identify what is the level that a student is at when they come into the program. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that during this session. So a measurable skill gains is looking at how many students have made a gain from one level to a higher level over the course of their instruction. So, Robert, why are these measurable skill gains important?
Yes, it's really great how we can take such a intimidating topic, measurable skill gains, but really once we understand exactly how they're used, yeah, in our day to day for your adult education program, obviously they become a lot less intimidating and they make a lot more sense. And by the way, I should say that I can't say it enough, the big picture of this Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is for whether it's our workforce centers or Department of Labor friends, or we in the adult education world, it really boils down to how are we helping learners get jobs, be prepared to get jobs, have the kind of soft skills to keep those jobs, and then have the kind of rigorous education with us so that they're able to have life after ESL, if you will, to go on to adult basic education or high school equivalency, and then definitely for career training programs, industry certificates, and college degrees, okay, as well as civics, which is a component in there, and making sure that they know the rights and responsibilities of living in a new country and contributing to their community and getting the most out of it. But within those WIOA common measures that I just talked about, once again, there's a subset, and that's where we get these measurable skill gains. And the measurable skill gains are kind of that check engine light, but hopefully in a positive way, right? And they're going to broken up into these areas. First, they really can help if we really take the time to work with learners to help them understand what these data points are. And in the end, these data points should be showing student success, okay? So learners see that making progress towards their goal is particularly, as Jane was talking about, moving students from level to level in that chart that you saw, moving from educational functioning levels. So this is a really big part, okay? Now, also, for particularly their teachers to help them along this pathway, getting data in their hands, getting data in the hands of teachers, getting data in the hands of program administrators, to know that we are rowing in the right direction, if you will, and we're doing the right things for learners. That's why measurable skill gains are important. And then finally, program funding. And in fact, typically when program funding is either boosted or it's drawn back, it's because, particularly as we're isolating today, this pre and post test, what's happening when a student first takes a test with us and then takes a follow-up test, months later, typically, do they advance on that chart through those functioning levels? And so oftentimes funding is tied to, this type of success, okay? So now we're going to talk about three strategies to improve those measurable skill gains. And again, we can't say it enough time, just for the kind of time we have together. We're going to be talking a lot about making assessment gains. And again, those assessment gains should be showing, the long-term, how the learners are making achievement for their, for their goals. So the first strategy that we're going to take a look at today is aligning learning to student goals, okay? Most critical, all right? And so that, that while we have standards and we have benchmarks and frameworks, in the end, we have to ask ourselves, for those students who are saying, I'm here because I need to get a better job. I'm here because I'm struggling on my current job and I want to keep it. Or maybe I was credentialed back in my home country and I really would like to participate in further study here to re-credential, okay? Or to move up a career ladder. So I think both the CASAS data that you're going to be taking a look at, as well as what you're going to see in Burlington, it fits seamlessly to achieve this. And then we're going to talk about how you can get the best quality, how learners can not necessarily have to study things that they're totally comfortable on, right? How we don't have to, in a way, bore them with things that they've already nailed down, but we can make sure that we know those areas of improvement. We know exactly what they are through the assessment given through CASAS. And then with that data in teachers' hands, just how quickly you can go into Burlington English and really make sure that that's a focus. And then lastly, increase post-testing rates. Okay, again, I wish I had you in front of me. I'd love to know, particularly from how many administrators, post-testing rates. How many learners came into your program, got a pre-test, but for so many reasons didn't get a post-test even though they were eligible. Okay, post-testing rates. If by the way, if that is a concern of yours, if you'd put that in the chat, if you've ever taken a look at your data and you've seen the amount of learners who came in with a pre-test and then we never got a post-test on them to see if they did make a measurable skill gain and improve, I'd love to see in the chat just how many people experience that same kind of challenge. Okay. So with that, let's talk about aligning learner goals. And I'm going to pluck an image right out of our Burlington English program, and this is from our career exploration and soft skills. I love it. This course, if we talk about aligning instruction for student goals, well, one of the best folks I have ever worked with, Scott Schnapoff, hi Scott, was our career counselor, and he was able to get that information from our learners. Where do they want to go? So during these most challenging times, you should know if you can't bring your learner to a career counselor or to a job fair or to job shadowing, just know, particularly with career exploration and soft skills, but also with core and our career extensions, you can virtually bring all of those elements to your learner. So the reason that we chose to show this was you got to know where you're at on a journey, a career pathway. It's a road trip, if you will, career road trip. You got to know where you're at. You got to know where you're going. And then incrementally along the way, you got to know through GPS, are you making the right turns and are you making the right decisions to meet your goals? So the analogy here is that CASAS provides the where are you now, can help to where you're going, incrementally can give you the GPS coordinates. And once again, we'll show you in just a few moments just how easy it is to take that data from CASAS. And again, even though Burlington, particularly our brand new core, is so robust, we're going to show you how within seconds to be able to do targeted instruction based on the reports that Jane's about to show you, as far as knowing exactly where your students need attention. So improving quality of instruction. And for this part, I'll turn it over to Jane, because obviously, once again, knowing where their students are and where they're going starts with data.
Okay, so if we could go to the next slide, please. The CASA system has been built over, as I had said earlier, a 40-year period on how to help programs improve learning for their learners or help students meet their goals. And from the very beginning, we've had these content areas that we've identified competencies within these, because for many, many years, we've known that contextualized learning is really dynamic and very important for our adult learners in order to help them see the value of coming to class or attending class on Zoom or wherever they're doing their learning. It's important that they see the relevance of what they're learning and how it applies to their everyday life. And this has been supported now with the new initiative from the Octave, the skills that matter. And these are the very almost identical, the topic areas that this contextualized learning has been shown to be successful in. And let me just give you an example in one more slide. In these categories, consumer economics, they are broken down into more discrete categories. And this is just one example from the area of health, which is content area 3. If you dig a little bit deeper to a competency area, category 3.4, that's a 2-digit level, then we start identifying a little bit more information. What does it mean in the area of health? And this one is understand basic health and safety procedures. We could even go a little deeper and say, well, what does that mean? And these are more measurable objectives that can be assessed and taught. So for example, 3.4.1 is interpret product label directions and safety warnings. Now that could be taught and measured from a very beginning level, a very simple label, to a very complex one where the safety labels and warnings are hazardous materials. And this could involve some writing, some speaking, some reading, some math, depending on what kind of label it is. So again, this is a way to organize the instruction and look at all the different aspects of it. We'll be looking at a few reports coming up, and you'll see these numbers showing up again, and it'll make more sense. So how do you find out where a student is? So CASAS has paper and computer-based testing, and we advise as many sites as possible to go with e-test, just because it generates so many very rich reports that are very, doesn't take the teacher time to hand score things, but they can be, the test can be scored immediately and the reports generated. So we recommend that new sites start with e-test, or sites that have paper tests move to e-test as they are able to. So if we could go to the next slide, please. All of the CASAS test items are coded to specific competencies out of those different content areas. They're also coded to specific content standards. And the content standards are the underlying academic skills that are being measured. And this kind of information is very, very important for teachers to understand. The teachers need to understand what are the content standards that they are developing for the students so that they can become stronger and independent learners. So every test item has a specific competency that it's measuring and a specific content standard. So in this case, this is a sample item of a student is being asked to read and interpret this chart, Sammy's calendar, and they have to be able to understand it and be able to answer the question, when does Sammy play soccer? So this is just one kind of a task area. This is reading a chart. There are other kinds of task areas, reading paragraphs. And so that when you see a CASAS test report, then that's why you can get all this information, is because we know what was being measured. So if we could go to the next slide, please. This is an example of a student performance report that's generated out of TOPS, which is a tracking of programs and students software. And there are a lot of different reports. This is one that's just for a student. This is sample student number 1. And we asked it to generate at the competency area, just at the 2-digit level. And we always spell out what are the competencies that are being taught. So here on the left column is a competency area. And then in the second column, it's the percentage correct. And we've asked it to sort that the most items missed are at the top, so that the teacher and the student can really quickly see what are the competency areas that they may want to tackle to begin with and to help prioritize. The next example is the next report that we'll look at is a class report. And again, the class reports can be generated at the competency area. And again, or it could be generated by a content standard. Again, the teachers will be able to discern what kind of report would really help them. And in this case, it's 14 students are in this class. And this has been sorted by the position of the test item. So they're in order of how that item was delivered on the test. So that's at the beginning of the test, you can see the first item had 81%. Well, the CASAS tests are created so that the easier items are at the beginning and the harder ones are at the end. So it's a kind of a power test, and we're trying to measure their progress. But again, we see the 3-digit competency number in the third column, and then we spell it out in the last column. So you never have to memorize or go to another document to see, well, what was that number? What did it refer to? We try to make it easy for the teacher and for the learners to be able to read and understand their own reports. If we could go to the next one. Next slide, please. So now how do we figure out this NRS level, which is on the left? Again, I had mentioned earlier that it's the CASA scale score that we see listed on the right. Here we're showing what all the ranges are. But again, using e-tests and TOPS Pro, that's all calculated on behind the scenes for the teachers and the learners. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll show you an example of a personal score report. And this is one student who has been tested in reading, and this person, Teresa, she got NRS level 4, which is a scale score of 208. So that's been automatically calculated, that 208 is equal to a ESL level 4. And then the student can see on the bottom the thermometer that shows the range where they are. And hopefully when they take the next test, they will see that their skills have improved and they've moved up on this thermometer. And right now she's in a level 4, and hopefully the goal is that she'll move into a level 5 the next time. But we're always looking at, have they made a scale score gain? And that's the important thing. Sometimes they won't make a measurable skill level, but they've made a significant scale score gain, which is as important for the student, that they're showing progress. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So this is a class performance by competency category. And I'm going to let Robert pick it up from here. Go from this class performance to how does this link, how do these competencies link to Burlington English?
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Again, what I love, and I'd love to see in the chat, how many folks are making the move from paper and pencil use of CASAS to TOPS Pro Enterprise. That'd be really, really interesting to see, because I love all of the dynamics that are going on now, because we've been hearing a lot of reports as far as when the economy reopens, it's going to be more and more and more a digital economy. We're going to be seeing, a lot of those no tech jobs, low tech, no tech jobs going away, being replaced by technology. And we've heard it for the longest time. Technology won't replace all learners nor all teachers, but teachers who use technology, workers who use technology are going to replace those who don't. So just know that what I'm so excited about, talk about during these challenging times, taking lemonades and turning it into lemons, is just how critical. In fact, you should know that we at Burlington have been working on our Burlington Core for quite some time. And that's our brand new Burlington that is going to just blow your mind if you haven't seen it. I would genuinely hope that you reach out to one of my colleagues to take a look, because what we're going to be talking about here is freeing the data. Too often times when I ran programs, the data stayed in the registration room, okay? And it never reached the teachers who so needed it. So I love it here. That that I can go and again, take these data reports and do targeted instruction with it. And let me show you just how quickly you can do that. So I can see that one of these performance indicators is jumping out at me. Okay, and that's only 40%. Now remember, okay, real quick, what does the W stand for in WIOA? Let's see how fast in the chat box somebody can type in. What's the W? No cheating on any other documents you have. What's the W mean in WIOA? All right, fantastic. Okay, Jane, you're right. I knew I was with the advanced class today. So let's put the workforce back in WIOA. And what does that mean? That means that, it starts really, with understanding, the basics of getting a job. So let's see how we can do that with Burlington. And so I'll jump now to a quick, connection for taking that data that Jane's just shared, and how fast could I do it? I almost want to play beat the clock. Now, before I do get started, if you haven't seen Burlington in a while or relatively new, you've got to know that, how about this in the chat? How many of you are actually on site? How many of you are primarily on site? That'd be interesting. So this image right here. And then how many of you are primarily online? Okay. How many of you are primarily online? Boy, the chat box just blowing up. Okay. What I love is even if you have to happen in a pivoting situation to where one night you're on site and then some news comes and now you have to teach from the comfort and safety of your own home, that screen that just popped up right here, that's our in-class lesson. Green means go for teachers here. So our in-class lessons, okay, they are perfect to help you pivot. So everything that you're going to hear me talk about, right now, doesn't matter. Got you covered. Daytime teacher, nighttime teacher, full-time, part-time, on-site, online, hybrid. We've blended. We've got you. Everything that you're going to see once I get that data, okay, from CASAS or from some mock tests that we're able to give in Burlington, I'm going to then be able to seamlessly connect it and look at the similarities of the screens that you see right there of what the teacher is going to be doing, that in-class lessons that projected up on the whiteboard or projecting on the Zoom for that teacher, and then to what the student's going to be seeing, whether they're on in a moment, you could read my mind, whether your learners are using Chromebooks, whether they're using tablets. And again, right now, what I love is everything I could do as a learner back at the building on a full-blown desktop and full-blown laptop, I can now do on my smart device. So also, you should know that as you're trying to keep everything structured, right? So we've been hearing a lot about emergency remote teaching, kind of scrambling and gluing together different resources, random websites and PowerPoints, and all it's been causing is stress for our part-time hourly adjunct teachers, as well as our full-time teachers, and then particularly for our learners. So just know if you're looking for consistency of product, something you could just, as Jane said, push a button and you've got it. That's what we've got right here. So let me jump for just a moment. And this is always fun as we move. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the proverbial, can you see my slide, right? That's always fun. I'm going to show you I'm going to show you our screen for and Jane, you can help me out as I'm sharing my screen. What I want to do here, there we go. I think I've got it. Okay. What I want to do is I want to move to, you're seeing my Burlington Core right now.
Yes.
So like I say, Burlington Core from the very, lowest starts of CASAS. Okay. That very first, even pre-A, right? When we're talking literally colors and numbers, students literally just making their emerging in English, we've got you covered with our Burlington basics. And bridge programs, life after ESL, you can start that as early as you'd like because of how robust Burlington English is. But let me show you again, if you recall, let me see in the chat, who can remember there was something about employment. We plucked out one particular employment element, a content area, a competency. Let's see if anybody's got a really fantastic memory on that. There was something about getting a job, and there were some numbers involved. Let's see if anybody can see. Jane showed a report. Leslie. All right, winner. There you go. So let's take a look at what I'm using as a teacher, projecting up to the board, or if I'm at home, what I'm projecting to my learners. Um, so I can either, let me go ahead and reset all of this. What I love is 4.1. That's, thank you, helping learners identify ways to get jobs. Okay. So we've got you covered here. I can either launch straight in to getting a job, because you remember those areas that Jane showed about, getting a job, keeping a job, health, navigating the community, everything. As you can see, our modules totally mirror that. But let's get targeted. Let's go now. So as a teacher, I can either launch straight in to any aspect of getting a job. Also, by the way, how many of you have, at least in your somewhere in your past, have had to jump to maybe using 4 or 5 textbooks, or maybe at least 5, 6 different websites or something? How many in the chat, be interesting to see, have had to really toggle between, okay, well, we know that really just doesn't make sense. We want to make it as easy as possible for you. So we want to put everything in one place. So as you can see here, 4 skills in grammar, listening and speaking, reading and writing. We've got you, again, plus grammar, everything we've got you covered. But let's be targeted here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you our fantastic search feature. So again, I've gotten the test report from the testing room, and now I'm going to see exactly how quickly I can get into Burlington for it. So in my search feature for my Burlington Core, I've clicked on correlations. Then look how easy it is, whether it's college and career readiness standards, ELPSs. Okay, I can so quickly find exactly what my students need help in. Now, a number of you put, isn't this fantastic? Thank you, Pamela Joe. Yeah, this is a fantastic feature. I can look how quickly I can go straight to employment. And then, do you remember it was 4.1? Boom. And now what I can do is I can click apply, and I can either highlight, or I can make my life really simple with the filter and jump right into exactly the ones that are perfect for me. So we were talking about needing to improve learners, helping them with getting a job. So how many of you have had a job interview in the last 5 years and it was stressful? Let me see in the chat. How many of you have had, I'll give you 10 years, 5 to 10 years. How many have had a stressful, okay, and you speak English. Could you imagine for our learners having to go through this process, I mean, it really, really is amazing. So what I love with Burlington English here is it is immersive. Our students, again, I can't say it enough. If because of all the shutdowns, you can't bring your learners to the experience, the on-site experience you want them, how about bring it to them? So how about having them engage in a mock interview? So I could go through all the different tabs that we have here, but I have to tell you, I'm going to take just a few seconds to show you. And again, thank you to Marcel and Naomi and Debbie, everybody involved in putting these together. These were fantastic. Talk about immersive, so that your learners can go and see a video right here. They have the ability to subtitle it. I can maximize the screen. So I know time is of the essence here, but let me show you just a few seconds of what it's like to help our learners, through more than just a data point, more than just understanding how to get a job. So I'm going to Cecil B. DeMille for just a second and launch this. And this is helping our learners really get into feeling what it must be like.
Hello, I'm Liz Hollis.
I'm Mario Silva. Nice to meet you.
Please have a seat.
So, I'm looking for a salesperson. Tell me, Mario, have you ever worked in sales? Yes, I've been a salesperson at Maxi Close since 2017.
And tell me, what did you do before that?
I used to live in Brazil. I worked there as a salesperson for 3 years.
Can you tell me what you do at Maxi Clothes?
I work in the women's department. We sell ladies' shirts, dresses, and pants.
Now, we don't have time to go through all of it, but I got to tell you, I think he's got the job. Okay. I love this feature. The fact that I can bring video, right? I can bring video to all of my elements here. And so I can really help it make it come to life. Okay. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you, I keep talking about how Burlington is blended. Okay. So as you're trying to address 4.1, getting a job, look what you can do right now. Let's quickly jump to, we've got this wonderful feature in the top right called the switcher. And so this is going to let me, and so I could even demo for my students what they're about to launch into when they've logged off from me and they're learning from home. So look at how easy it is to seamlessly blend going from this experience that we just showed to what the students are going to see when they've logged off from me and they're working as a teacher and they're working self-directed. Wow, exactly. And when you're thinking about the best way, how about this on a scale of 1 to 5 in the chat, 1 being not so much, 5 being a lot, how concerned are you for student retention in if you have to serve your students primarily remotely? Yes, ma'am?
There are 2 big black boxes on the screen that were, so we can't see very clearly. We don't know what's happening.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, friends. All right, let's go ahead. How about right now? Any better?
No, sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. It wouldn't be a tech presentation, right?
Without,
Okay, yeah. And so you're not seeing the Burlington Core?
not very clearly. You know, there's some, for some reason, it's not very clear, and there's a black box hovering over some of the text.
Okay, okay. Take me just a second. Thanks for everybody for your indulgence. Let me close. How about right now?
There's still one there for some reason.
All righty. Oh, and this is, trust me, this is the super exciting part. I really genuinely, how about now?
Still there, sorry. But
Okay.
we'll indulge you with the black box so you can explain what's available.
Okay, okay. Well, it shouldn't be a black box. And thank you. We'll try this one more time. Anything different now?
Now it's good, thank you.
Are you seeing the Burlington Core?
Yes, keeping
Okay.
learning structured and standards-based.
Ah, okay. But not the,
No, you're not in the core.
okay.
The technology elves are at work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me jump back for just a second, folks. Thank you very much. And like I say, I can't say enough that you know, do hope you reach out to one of my Burlington colleagues who can give you even more. One of the reasons that I wanted that I'm like a dog with a bone here, which I have 7 by the way, is I want to show how critical it is. And Jane, just let me know if I'm still not seeing the Burlington Core. Huh?
Now you are, and it's clear. It's good.
The mock
Okay.
job interview.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Friends, thank you so much. All right, so with the limited time we have together, I'd like to emphasize something that has always impressed me as somebody who has taken a lot of time trying to learn a foreign language. So in the chat, how many folks have taken a fair amount of foreign language classes, but then when you got out in the real world, it was just way too fast? Anybody willing to admit that that was okay? Exactly. So this is the part that I love. And I know we're coming towards the conclusion of our webinar here, but this is the big part. This is the rubber hits the road for student retention, because overwhelmingly the research says that how our typical learner judges himself or herself is through this, is actually seeing is how they feel when they're having to speak without text in a real life context, on the job or in the community. Okay. So now what I've done, just to share with you, I've toggled between what the students, what I was doing as a teacher, and now this is what I'm going to be doing as a learner. So let me play this just for a moment.
Why are you looking for a new job?
There are no full-time jobs at the pharmacy where I work. I need a full-time job, and I'd like to work here.
Great, but sometimes our store is crowded. A lot of customers need help. How do you...
Okay, so Jane and everybody, I'd like you to put in the text box, were we mostly doing a listening comprehension or mostly doing a reading comprehension exercise? Okay, what were we doing there? Were we doing mostly a listening comprehension or a reading comprehension? And the research says is that because we had the text, okay, we were actually overwhelmingly doing a reading comprehension. So one of the features I love with Burlington English is down at the bottom, I can hide the text. Okay, so now I've gotten comfortable. I've watched it with the text.
Why are you looking for a new job?
There are no full-time jobs at the pharmacy where I work. I need a full-time job, and I'd like to work here.
Great, but sometimes our store is crowded. A lot of customers need help. How do you... Great, but sometimes
so
our
as you
store...
can see, I've now have, as a learner, now I'm really experiencing a true real life listening comprehension. And if you think about our students being locked down and not having the ability, at their workplaces and to engage in English, providing them with Burlington English is a fantastic way, not just to make level gains, with the CASAS listening, but in real life. Well, Jane, I know I've taken a ton of extra time here on this part. Let me turn it back over to you to help pull us together here.
Yeah, we'll rush to the finish line.
Yep.
Let's see. There's a poll that just appeared, so go ahead and answer that and then close it out. And our last strategy was how to increase post-testing times. So Robert will find that slide in just a minute. So this is a strategy that is not easier said than done, but we have technology to help us increase the post-testing rates. And if your agency is using TOPS, there is a report that's available. Robert, we're not seeing the slide.
Sure. Gotcha.
Yet.
I'll do that right now.
Okay. So with the CASA system, we have, and with other tests, you have your pre and post testing. And then in TOPS Pro, there's a data integrity report. And that data integrity report, I see it's coming. Let's see, Robert. The data integrity.
Are you able to see it right now?
Now we can, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so this NRS data integrity report shows the administrator all the data that's available in your system. And if you look at row number 9, I've enlarged it, it says no post-test. So in this particular site, there's 91 students or 39% of this site's population that has no post-test. You can actually click on that 91 and it'll let you dive in and see exactly which students are missing their post-tests. And so this kind of information really helps target, well, are those people that are due for a post-test because they've been in the program long enough? Or with managed enrollment or open entry, open exit, it's difficult to keep tabs on everybody. So by relying on this data integrity report, you can really clean up your data and make sure it's the best possible to show your successes. Let's see. Can you go to the next?
I think this is one of mine.
Okay. Okay, we must be on a different.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock in California and 3 o'clock everywhere else. And we thank you so much for spending this time with us. Again, the three strategies to increase your measurable skill gains is to align learning to student goals, improve the quality of instruction, and increase post-testing rates. And following that, plus other great strategies, we know that you'll be able to show success. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, and I know many of you have a hard stop, but I would really, really, really implore you. There is so much great information that we can help, and particularly this slide right here. And once again, if you have to leave us, totally understand. But this slide right here, this how many learners are sitting in programs that are eligible and that haven't been post-tested. If this is a major, major, major problem throughout the country. And so just know if you move to the TOPS Pro Enterprise, you get reports that show you that you've got learners that very easily could be boosting your measurable skill gains, but we just haven't gotten a post-test on them. And then lastly, if you happen to use Burlington English or are considering using Burlington English, please reach out to my colleagues, because we have an element called Prepare for CASAS that is spot on for keeping programs mindful that learners are becoming eligible, and again, reducing stress, test anxiety. So using that Prepare for CASAS gives you really, really, really great, phenomenal reports as well that complement everything that TOPS Pro would do. So with that, again, thank you very much. Really sorry about the hiccups toward the end. Sure hope this was helpful to you. And again, Jane, any final words here?
No, thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to meeting everybody again soon.
Yes, and please blow up our email boxes. I've been sending Red Bull to Jane and she to me, so we would love to help out. So that's jguez@casas.org, and then the general email casas@casas.org. And for myself, please, robert.b@burlingtonenglish.com, and then as well as our info@burlingtonenglish.com as well. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you. Take care now.
Bye.